What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to FudgeMuppet. I'm Scott, here with Michael and Drew as always, and this is the Elder Scrolls podcast, and today we are talking all about the Daedric Prince of Destruction and many other things. So let's get into it. Which one of you would like to start?
It's Drew the Daedrologist taking it away with his Mehrunes Dagon t-shirt. With his red fist raised to the sky.
Rage Against the Machine.
It's Disturbed.
Yeah, look.
With Daedric Crescent on an album cover.
Mehrunes Dagon, favourite prince. It's hard for him not to be because he's got so much lore and so much love. But, with the ESO expansion coming out soon, seemingly another invasion from the Deadlands. And, he's really getting love when some other Daedric princes could probably use it. But, hey, I like him, so I'm not complaining.
Yeah, I don't think the citizens of Tamriel like him as much as you do. He's caused them, and he will keep causing them trouble because he's so popular in our world. It's like some deep connection there. But he's going to cause them a lot of problems, and they're going to see him as a prince of annihilation and destruction, and he's going to be terrifying. But the cool thing about him, at least to us, because we're not subject to all of his destructive tendencies, is that he's also a Daedric prince of ambition and change and revolution, so that the old can be taken down and the new can kind of, come into being.
Well, that's something to establish straight away, is that he's chaotic neutral. He's on no one side at the end of the day. He's just against the most powerful, whoever that happens to be. And, as that turns and, the cycle of who's on top and who's on the bottom changes, who he favors is going to change as well. So he's not pure evil, but when your house is getting burned down and you're all getting slaughtered, he probably seems that way, and rightfully
He's pretty on brand for what generally the Daedra are, as like embodiments of sort of like Padme, of like chaos and so on, that idea. Like he's quite literally just change, really.
Although I feel like saying he's chaotic neutral is a little bit, I don't know, nice. I mean, I know what you mean as the concept, but it's like you could cause change and like revolution in a less torturous, fiery, and painful way.
Yeah, but
less
like
hellish landscape, kind of like.
It's kind of like, I guess, if Molag Bal is like chaotic evil, if you know what I mean. Like they're on different levels. They're not like. I think like Dagon's stuff is just a lot of the time. It's like, I guess, he's positioned against the status quo all the time, and the status quo doesn't like that, of course. Like the Empire doesn't like the fact that there's a Oblivion invasion taking over their lands.
No, I more just mean like you could have like some more I don't know, it would be more boring, but a more boring Prince of Revolution that kind of just like, I don't know, sprinkles in little subterfuge or like,
Well, I don't want to get too deep in the metaphysical too soon because, we'll save that a bit. We'll, dive right into it. But when you look at it through his kind of origin story and you speculate based on that, it's kind of the ultimate revolution because it's fundamentally based around the idea of mortals being these trapped beings stuck in this mortal plane who are all doomed to die. So his kind of first revolution is like a rebellion against the very like nature of being mortal, to kind of like to make everyone become immortal again, which is kind of gnarly, but an intense topic.
Yeah, I mean, we can get all into the Magna Geese story and Lig and him being a Daedric Prince of Hope as well. That makes him sound a lot nicer, doesn't it? I'm a Daedric Prince of Hope.
Yeah, I
it's
guess
the one thing we all have that unites us.
Yeah. Rogue One. But yeah, I think we could honestly we could get into that now if you wanted, because it is his origin. Origin's a decent place to start. So we could get into it if you want to do that now.
Okay, well. I'm like, going into, if you've read or, if you've heard from Mankar Cameron when you've played Oblivion or read the Mythic Dawn commentaries, he's very cryptic, kind of like tries to be a bit like Mehrunes Dagon in that sense. But when you boil a lot of it down, the really cool thing about Mehrunes Dagon's origin story is you have the Magna Ge, so Lig is this kind of adjacent place, this other version of Tamriel. Perhaps it's like a failed attempt by Lorkhan to make Tamriel that's previously been destroyed. But the Magna Gi, kind of, that there were these the dregs that you see under the water around Tamriel were tyrant kings in Lig, and they were enslaving everyone. So the Magna Gi created Mehrunes Dagon in the bowels of that continent, kind of essentially as a means to topple that empire of dregs and allow for someone else to take up the mantle. So they made him of basically pure hope. But it kind of backfired on them, because what Mehrunes Dagon did with that is he looked and said, the real tyrants are the gods. So he started a revolution against the very nature of the world, against the gods, and destroyed the whole world as a result.
Yeet. That's really, it's really golly stuff.
You know, it's pretty crazy.
And that's how he's and I guess to preface this as well, like, this is all from the Mythic Dawn commentary, so it is like a sort of a more like esoteric understanding of him, like even within the world itself, because like other religions will sort of explain him differently, or he'll be portrayed differently in like less of a, like, obviously there's a little bit of a favorable twist.
It's one guy's interpretation,
Yeah.
you know, which is fun to take very seriously.
Because a lot of other people, so I was just going to say, a lot of other people would just interpret him as another Daedra that, you know, was there when the world was created and didn't put his power into it, right?
The one thing but the one thing I guess is that it is Mehrunes Dagon wrote the Mysterium Xarxes, which the Mythic Dawn commentaries on, and like translations and so on. So you could cast doubt over that and you know, them like wanting to translate in a particular way or whatever, but still at least there is like a core source material that was written by him.
Yeah, and I don't think that Mehrunes Dagon would want to say he was created by the Magna Gi either, if it wasn't true. Like, it's not exactly like, you know, if you wanted to position yourself as powerful, you'd say, I'm the oldest Daedra, I've always been around, I'm so strong, look at me.
Yeah.
So to be like, I was actually created by Magna Gi, it just sounds like a weird thing to lie about in the realm of, you know, divine entities.
Well, it gets hazy because a lot of, you know, linear time that mortals would be used to doesn't really apply to the gods outside of the mortal realm, and, you know, in Ephirius and in the planes of oblivion, it's very much subject to change. So you can have all these stories about, I guess that inherently means that Meridia, being a part of the Magna Gi, predated Mehrunes Dagon. But it's like, well, when we say predated, what does it really mean to gods? They're immortals. They, you know, if you're in their realms, they can make time flow however they want it to.
It's interesting too that the whole idea of the Mythic Dawn, you know, being like a reference to the Dawn era and a cyclical sort of nature of things. You know, we talk about Kalpas and so on, and how there's an idea that the beginning and end are the same thing. The end of a previous Kalpa is just the start of the new Kalpa, and the Dawn era is that craziness in between. That he's just sort of like, it's a funny way of thinking about him, but he's just like obsessed with restarting. Like, it's kind of like things get built, but it wants to tear it down and restart, you know? So
are you Mehrunes Dagon playing Skyrim back in the day? You make your character, you get to level 37, you pick one wrong perk, you're not happy, restart.
Yeah, I was... he's a min-maxer. He's like, this playthrough's shit, so I'm gonna start again. Down with the tyrant dregs.
Yeah.
But, like, the whole revolution angle really is from the Mythic Dawn for the most part, I think. There's little hints of him. I do like in Reachman mythology, he's considered, the ambition angle is there as well, and along with destruction and so on. But I kind of do like visualizing like the ambitious part of things as part of Mehrunes Dagon's sphere, because ambition, I don't want to say like it's inherently like destructive or whatnot, but like usually an ambition is to like acquire something or do something or bring about like, you know, a change or something. So if you're going to become an emperor, you're going to do all of these, you know, all the various things that are required, all the conquests, all the, you know, politics and stuff like that to get somewhere. So that kind of ambition is inherently destructive, you know?
Mm. Well, while I've been a bit of an apologist for Dagon so far, it depends on your perspective as well, because, you know, if you look at the differences between elves and men, for the most part, you know, elves can be kind of resentful for their mortality, and they believe that they belong with the gods. back in Aetherius. But if you're a human, most of the time they're thankful for Lorcan for creating the world and making them, exist and allowing them to have families and lives. So when you've got the Oblivion crisis that happens in Cyrodiil, or that's where we see it from. For most of these innocent humans, they're like, you just go away. Yeah. We're just trying to live our lives here. They're not too pleased about it. You have to be kind of like Mankar Cameron and get really into what they're trying to achieve here. But it's like, a mass suicide in order to escape mortality, and then you could be getting sold something that's not quite as nice as it sounds anyway. So
I feel like too we should bring up, and we've made videos on this before, but about how Mehrunes Dagon was sort of inadvertently successful with the Oblivion crisis. Like, even though he didn't immediately get like, I'm going to restart the Dawn era or so on, but his whole idea of enacting his fear and like bringing about great change, like the Oblivion crisis is the catalyst for the Empire's current downfall, the rise of the Thalmor, and various other events all over Tamriel that, gives you the world that you've got in the events of Skyrim. So he does, it's cool, but like also you kind of got to be careful with those kinds of things sometimes, because I guess like
you could give him way too much credit. Like you could just be like, everything that flowed on from here was because of Mehrunes Dagon. But if you look at the real world, you could say that about so many events that are, large, but had no intention of changing the world, but they did. But then that doesn't mean that everything, in terms of like butterfly effect, it's like, yes, everything flows on from there. But in terms of kind of just like direct cause and effect, it's like you can't just give credit to every single event from that.
Yeah, it's just basically you can't credit him with the entirety of the butterfly effect, if you know what I mean. Because it's like, events happen, but he's like, oh yeah, I won anyway because, all these things. Even though the Oblivion crisis was a fairly direct one, I guess, but
it's just a big cope.
I'm sure.
One.
Plus,
pretty much.
Most of Tamriel suffered as well. Yeah. So kind of like it is a bit of an equalizer that the Empire were the strongest and they probably suffered the most, but almost everyone, with the exception of perhaps the Argonians, suffered pretty drastically as a result of Mehrunes Dagon's work.
Yeah, I mean, I guess initially, until the Thalmor just capitalized and swept through, and now they're taking over a whole lot, and I really hope we get to find out in Elder Scrolls 6 what happens with them. Gosh. Just been in such a...
Maybe we need to bring Mehrunes Dagon back to take down the Thalmor now they're getting too OP. He's just basically the devs coming in to nerf whatever faction is getting too strong.
Yeah. Because like speaking of the whole Oblivion crisis thing and like how like, he's kind of just the whole idea that that's just the catalyst event. It's kind of like a bit of a cope in the way he was just unsuccessful. But he kind of is continuously unsuccessful. Like, working with, Jaegar Tharn against like, in Battlespire and so on. And presumably in this new Elder Scrolls Online thing, there's going to be some kind of like failure on his part because he can't take all over Tamriel and stuff this time.
But then I guess then he doesn't want to win. I mean, he does, but he doesn't, in the way that if he did win, then wouldn't he just be another Daedric prince of domination like Molag Bal? And he's like, I won. It's mine. I own Tamriel.
I think
then what?
I think it's more a case of there's protagonist magic that keeps beating him back. Like
no. What I'm saying is, but if he did win, then his entire sphere is kind of like...
I think he would be on like he's like the Great Reset, just wants to like start the Dawn era again, and then he would wait to whoever gets to the top dog position again. Is like, no, we've got to tear them down.
Yeah, I think if he won, there'd be nothing for him to claim. If he truly won, kind of then he would have undone it all.
Yeah, he would have to like at some point be removed from the equation or like be reset himself.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to feel sorry for him when he comes back in ESO, because normally he's got to deal with one protagonist, but now he's got like hundreds of thousands of people logging in as protagonists to take him down. So he's kind of got no
it gets
hope.
Really metaphysical. Like the more worship they get, the more powerful they get, but the more players kill them in Elder Scrolls Online, the more they're weakened permanently.
It might also not be an invasion story, and it might be going into Oblivion more so and interacting with the Mysterium Xarxes and Mehrunes like in his realm more so. I'm sure it's got some kind of crisis, but I'm kind of hoping it's not another invasion. Like, it can't be another invasion, please.
It would feel
be.
silly. It would
Because-
invalidate everything so far. Like when you speak, I mean, I know this already happens. It already does happen for sure. But it would just feel even sillier when you talk to an NPC in Oblivion and they're like, the Oblivion Crisis, nothing like this has ever happened before, kind of thing. And
Well, it's the same thing with
Mehrunes. I know it's the same with
Molag
Molag
Bal. But what I'm saying
But
is it
you
would
just-
be extra worse if Molag Bal and Mehrunes Dagon
That's
do it
what I'm
with a period
saying.
of 10
That's
years
what
kind
I'm
of thing.
saying.
Yeah, well, depending on where you are in your story, you could be dealing with a plane meld and this Mehrunes Dagon thing simultaneously, which just seems a bit ridiculous.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
need
the
to watch your Daedra that need more love videos. Should have done one of those.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of those get a little bit more in some of the new lore, but it's like more so background lore for them, not really like intense. You know, they don't get a whole DLC to themselves, which, you know, they should. But we could start talking about some of the things he's done and so on. We could even go, like, I guess chronologically, if we like, we can kind of go through it. But there's a reason Sotha Sil has it out for him, because supposedly the House Sotha in the early First Era was destroyed by Mehrunes Dagon himself, and that's why there is no house anymore. And this is just like, I used to get confused by this a long time ago, so I know it can be confusing for people, but Kaima/Dunmer culture, they at least used to in ancient stuff use their like family name or clan name as their first name. So like that's why it's Indoral Nerevar, is because he's personal name is Nerevar, but his family name's Indoral, and so he's like Sotha Sil, like from House Sotha. So his name's like Sil, but Sotha is his house name.
So you would have like House Scott. Like, sorry, I mean, you wouldn't. That's what I'm saying. You wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would do it.
That would be wrong. But House Sotha was like a small insignificant one from my understanding. The main thing he destroyed was the town, right? Ald Sotha, which was like a settlement or
I think Ald is something along the lines of
Old Sotha in Dunmer was an ancient ruined settlement. But before it wasn't ancient and ruined, it was alive and then destroyed by Mehrunes Dagon.
And I guess in the regards to the importance of, we can just touch on it with Mehrunes Dagon in Dunmer theology, is one of the four corners of the House of Troubles, which also include Malakath, Sheogorath, and Molag Bal. There you go. But Mehrunes Dagon specifically, like, he is seen as kind of like the test of like the environment in their regards. So sort of like all like the volcanic harsh lands and the terrible storms and ash storms and stuff they have, and all of basically natural disasters and so on, is where he's sort of associated. Like, because in the Dunmer theology, each of the four corners of troubles represents certain tests for the Dunmer people. So like Sheogorath is like the mental test of like, they try and make you mad. Molag Bal's like tries to corrupt the bloodline, and the Dunmer purity, it tests them there. And Malakath is supposed to be like the physical kind of test of like, the orcs coming to fight them and make sure they're still good warriors. And then Mehrunes Dagon encapsulates the like actual like environmental test, sort of like the survivalisty kind of thing.
I think it's also like their will. I believe I remember reading something like testing their will to live and prosper. And he does literally represent that terrain of Morrowind in their theology, like the rocky, fiery, not super hospitable in all areas terrain.
It's one of the things that really separated the Kaima, making them the changed ones from the Oldmer, who kind of go on to be the Ultima, is that it's like, don't just be upset that you're immortal, you are amortal, not immortal. Rather see it as a test, overcome it. And, if you look at someone like Vivek, he's kind of the perfect example of someone who took that very literally. But then it's interesting how that whole Dunmer society then becomes like antithetical to that, because they have these tribunal gods that sort of, more or less coddle them and give them this like little nice golden age. And then seemingly the Daedra don't like that either, because, Mehrunes Dagon gets summoned by it was like a witch or something, or no, it was the daughter of, gets summoned by a woman and destroys Mournhold. But
Actually, I can't remember who she was. She was either a witch or conjurer or something who was slighted by the Duke of Mournhold. I can't.
Yeah, I'm blanking on this too. But yeah, I mean that's essentially what's happening here is that this tribunal is kind of, you know, they've gained an immense amount of power, and you know they're becoming obsessed with being, you know, at the top of the food chain, and they kind of just, you know, that kind of goes against their old gods. So they kind of like, oh, they were the anticipations of us. Let's put them away and forget about them. It kind of like you can't really worship them simultaneously.
And it would be in Dagon's sort of sphere anyway to want to like take down the tribunal. Like it's another sort of example of like a status quo. Like let's get revolution, change going. So they're kind of opposed, I guess, in that way as well. There is also some stuff with the battle spire and so on, which is a big part, and things that happen before that to set up the events of battle spire. But I feel like we've covered this a few times. We talked about battle spire when talking about the artifacts and so on, but it really is a pretty straightforward story. Like sort of in dealings with Jagar Tharn's like, yeah, I'm going to attack the battle spire and try and invade the realm that way, and you, the apprentice, use various cool artifacts to like fend him off. It's a story of an action game. It's not like a
It's interesting because it kind of brings in one of the ideas that kind of gets glossed over a lot, of like the ideas of the true name of something to be used as a source of power. It's like it can be quite common in fantasy stories, but so that it's called the Nimic is like by finding Mehrunes Dagon's true Nimic, they could kind of take him down. And you see a lot of that from Mankar Cameron when he's reading the Mysterium Xarxes and interpreting it. He learns about his proto-Nimic is how he was born, and his neo-Nimic was him shedding the old and kind of embracing this new identity, which is kind of why he's one of those characters who's so hard to say, oh, he's a Bosma, or he's an Altma, he's an Ayleid, he's like whatever. You can't really put your finger on who or what
he's
is.
A Bethesda plot
for the
hole.
same reason.
And you can banish a Daedra, even Mehrunes Dagon, if you know their Nimic, right? Like I remember hearing, if anyone ever meets Mehrunes Dagon and you want to get rid of him, or summon him perhaps with his full incantory name, it's really long. It's because some people I think just have a proto-Nimic and some have a neo-Nimic, and then others have both. And if you have both, then you need to say both of them, because if you just say one, it won't have any effect. Mehrunes one is like Lekelaga. That's actually all right. Lekelaga, I think that's the first part, and the second part's really hard, and that's like Jekelaho Debe Efe. Yeah, it's just silly.
See, he's made it complicated, so you can't use it on
That's
him.
it.
That's the whole
That's
plan.
it. I can't say it. But if I had to save the world, I could definitely learn to say it. So
it's kind of funny. Like I don't know if this was an effect of Mehrunes Razor before the time of Battle Spire, but it's kind of funny how he was probably quite burned by the fact that he was banished after the events of Battle Spire, because if you pick up Mehrunes Razor, you know, when you kill instantly, you're essentially banishing them to be their souls to be captured by Dagon, but you can't use the instant kill banish effect on Mehrunes Dagon. If you were to try it, in Oblivion,
yeah,
you can't.
Although
do that.
you can kill him, I think, with just raw damage.
Can you really?
Yeah, like I remember shooting him so much, and I'm pretty sure I used some crazy exploits to get some like 20,000 damage arrows and stuff. But I remember he actually melted. Like he full went. You know how like sometimes Bethesda. I mean, I had it happen in Cyberpunk too, like exactly the same. But when a character kind of like melts and like their limbs just like start spaghettiing, like they're in space and like they kind of drift out. Basically, I did that to Mehrunes Dagon, except he just went straight down. So his kind of body fell and his head fell, and it was like this big stretchy like lasagna, just straight into the floor.
You need to try and recreate that, because I want you to record
I'm
it.
sure it's on YouTube. Like, there's no way. I'm very certain someone else would have captured it.
Well, there you go. He can be destroyed. Yeah. Who needs Martin Septim when he can just get 20k damage?
The problem is the quest continues still. It just... And I'm pretty sure if you go into the Temple of One after doing that, he'll still appear, like, scripted.
As a spaghetti monster
No,
as
just
well.
scripted, like, normal. Yeah.
So, well, we can start talking about some of his artifacts, and I know, Drew, that you love the Mysterium Xarxes so much. But, like, why we can start talking about why this book is so compelling for
It's
you.
only because it was scribed in the deserts of rust and wounds.
I mean, that's a cool
the
line. But besides that...
Some fans have, like, transcribed what it says on the pages you can physically see. And I can read off some of that. But what's interesting is actually in a video I've pretty much just finished is it's you kind of need to use it alongside, or this is my interpretation anyway, is that for Mankar to kind of extract its full potential, he needed to use it alongside the razor. You couldn't have one without the other.
Why is that?
Essentially, that was his way of kind of absorbing the information he discovered, was by essentially like kind of cutting into himself as he learned the secrets. But yeah, this Mysterium Xarxes, because it gives the Mankar's translation is what gives you the kind of the rules as to how to discover the Mythic Dawn and stuff. So it's there's like
that would be a really creepy spiritual take, wouldn't it? It's like you know how everyone's spiritual is like everyone's looking at external things. Really, you have to go within. And then there's him with his blade like cutting open himself. That's dark. He's actually going in.
That's right. Yeah, I like how it's often even Dagon's referred to like as the Razor as well. In part, like they're kind of like synonymous. And I mean, I guess even if you want to look at it on a really like materialist sort of kind of view of it, like he quite literally is in the way that the Daedric artifacts are a piece of the Daedric Prince anyway.
Well, and the Mysterium Xarxes is sometimes called the Book of Razors. And, I don't think it's any coincidence that when Mankar describes reading it, he says each word is razor-fed, and he says it's tarnished like red drink. Twice he mentions razor-fed and red drink, like red drink obviously being his blood, and razor-fed kind of like, to me, that seems more literal than than you'd think. And that's kind of how he took it. But, it's like you got the come slow and bring 4 keys. And, in my first arm, a storm. My second, the rush of plagued rain. The third, all the tinder of Anu. The fourth, the very eyes of Padhom. It's like, you kind of have to decipher it a bit. And at times it doesn't really make any sense. But it's like, it's pretty badass.
He's just the god of shaving, dude.
Yeah, I was about to say that. We need one of those generic YouTube sponsors like Dollar Shave Club or something. Get that for this video.
Well, that's kind of the theory with the razor, is that you are shaving with it. You're not going to use it to kill. You're shaving, but you're not shaving away anything physical like shaving your beard. You're shaving away metaphysical elements of yourself. Like the idea is Mankar Cameron shaved away his birth, his the genetics he inherited from his parents, which were likely Bosmeri, and kind of just crafted his own body with the dragon's blood in it, allowing him to wear the Amulet of Kings.
Here's a little theory to put a hole in everything. What if Razor fed just means like Mehrunes Dagon is telling him this, like as in like fed from the Razor, like Dagon being called the Razor?
I mean, I get it's no more or less.
It's just
we can confirm it.
Just,
but
it's just boring.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
There's nowhere near as cool as a metaphysical razor that can be used to harness all these things and cut into barriers and go to different worlds, and it basically becomes the skeleton key but a knife in a way.
I also do like anyway just when theories are like can be created to sort of explain holes that are there anyway. Like I see them, I give them more credence whenever they're kind of like useful, like to explain how he's dragonborn and why he's not this particular brand of elf according to how the lineage works.
I think Elder Scrolls fans are at this point masters of doing that, because there are so many times where we're forced to make up for some weird mistake in the games, which is, I don't mean to be mean to the devs, because there's a lot of stuff that goes into them, but it's definitely a case that we find a load of stuff that doesn't make sense and we like help them to make it
Honestly,
work.
it's bound to happen when you have like, you know, going, because people have to, like the Arena Daggerfall is almost like a different era and a different kind of Tamriel almost, and then they sort of had a kind of softish reboot of a lot of things come Morrowind and Oblivion and Skyrim, and then it kind of, each one of those iterations kind of, they're made by different writers and different people working on it, so, and they have different gameplay functions and features that they want lore for, and it just kind of evolves it. And then obviously Elder Scrolls Online comes about, and that changes things as well, so it's kind of like hard to, you know, basically since I think it's like 94 or something, Zarina or something, more or less like 24 kind of ish years of Elder Scrolls history with all of these different people. It's hard to keep it like perfectly consistent, so you need to get, you know, your cope sword out and razor the lore a bit and like fix it up, you know, inside and out, because it's like you'll even get that kind of disconnect with even things of like sort of the Battlespire kind of era. There's just some, I know there's things in Battlespire sometimes, like, you know what I mean? It's like that, you can tell it doesn't fit the exact same sort of image of the Elder Scrolls.
I mean, you can completely see the massive art style change. I mean, everything in Battlespire was super like sexual and like, you know, look at the Mazkin. They'll just be walking, and then when they like jump out with wings, they become naked and like.
And
it was very retro.
Yeah,
100%.
and ultimately, this is Mehrunes Dagon's plan, because he's enacting revolution and change. He takes down the old art style and reborn, you know, in Morrowind and so on, and he furthers it. You know, he's winning here.
Because that's
he's
what
the
happens.
real winner.
He saw the art style of the characters in Oblivion, and he was disgusted, so he had to destroy it. And essentially, that's what he did to make Skyrim's character models.
Yeah, and then what's Elder Scrolls 6 gonna look like? What kind of revolutions do you think he's gonna take? Like, how's he gonna take it down? You know, like how's he gonna take down Skyrim and replace it with Elder Scrolls 6, the new revolution of settlement building?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he gets us to build up all the settlements so he can tear them down.
In Elder Scrolls 7. Gosh, it's crazy to think that may actually be a thing one day.
I don't even
Yeah, I
pay
know.
it thought.
I
That's
know,
sort
me
of like
too.
I'll probably be like 40 plus.
50 years old
Yeah, like
at this rate.
But so yeah, the Mysterium Xarxes has got heaps of cool stuff to it, and you know, being used with a razor, because also outside of just the razor by itself is just like, oh, it's a cool dagger. Really, it's like a legendary dagger, unless you consider all of the metaphysical things and its interactions with the Mythic Dawn commentaries and Mysterium Xarxes and so.
Yeah, its effect doesn't really work outside of game mechanics, because, you know, like a chance to kill instantly can be useful against a powerful enemy. But if you've got this dagger and you're an assassin, and they say, oh, you know, there's a 2% chance it will kill them instantly. If you're an assassin, you know, if you're slitting throats, you don't really need to worry about a 2% chance. You're killing them instantly, or you're a terrible assassin. It's as simple as that. So the effect kind of needs the metaphysical stuff to be interesting.
Yeah, because what you'd need to hit them like could be 50 times before you could guarantee that instant kill, by which they're probably dead anyway.
I don't know if you know off by heart, but I know his forearms are often associated with like different weather kind of things. Isn't there a thing like one of his things is storm, and basically him just viewing weather as weapons, because I know he's also like got different weapons all the time, like the claws and the axe and stuff like that. And one thing, when you do look at his Daedric artifacts, he is kind of like, he has a lot of weaponry going around, and like a lot of, he's credited with creating them. So like in the there's different stories around the Spear of Bitter Mercy but he created, but he also like created the Daedric Crescents as like for all of his army and stuff, had these Daedric Crescents, and there's this Deadland Hammer, and then there's the Mehrunes Razor itself, and then there's the Sword of the Moon Reaver. Like he has like a, you know, and I guess you do when you want a revolution army kind of, you know, bent on destruction. Weapons are at their core for destruction of something.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you even look at his theme in general, it fits perfectly with his army. Like Dremora, they're a very warlike Daedra. They may have served other Daedra before, but typically they're very, you know, hierarchical and war-based, and they have a lot of pride around their ability in combat. It all fits perfectly. I'm surprised he even had a book as one of his artifacts, but I'm very glad that he did.
It's just his manifesto before he goes off attacking everything.
Yeah.
But we can also just bring up because there's some other interpretations, and there's one that just takes this fearsome looking character and completely trivializes him in the Khajiit pantheon. So being called he's just like the fire
kitten.
cat or whatever, but he's basically is a little destructive kitten, because how a little kitten will get somewhere and then they're just playing and destroying and tear up your clothes or something like that. But that's the kind of vibe that I just like how they trivialize this giant force of destruction by making him a little cat. I mean,
they do that with other things, but I guess it makes a bit more sense.
But he's the only one that's kitten is the kind of thing, Chloe Mehrunes. I think all the others are sort of a little bit more. It's cat, because Khajiit version of the god, but he's particularly got this.
Oh, I mean, Shea Gorath appears as a
skooma
cat, like a little, but
plus with Mehrunes, he kind of Molag just battles him and then immediately enslaves him, so kind of asserts his dominance over him too. So Mehrunes definitely gets a bit of the short end of the stick when it comes to Khajiit spirituality.
Yeah. I think Dunmer had a bunch of cool stuff after. I'll have to verify the exact story again, but there's something vaguely about there's a rock that I think it's Margan or something. But
it's Margan.
Mehrunes Dagon was going to throw a rock at all of these, a meteor-y looking thing against all of these Dunmer, but then Vivek sort of kind of taunts him and basically tricks him into throwing the rock to where Vivek is, and then Vivek dodges, zips out of the way, whatever. But then the rock stays there and it becomes a bit of sort of a spiritual significance point where they go for pilgrimages and so on. And there's also the whole story with Vivek fighting Mehrunes Dagon, and then where Mehrunes Dagon loses his sword at one point, but then Vivek insists that he gives him a sword to use because there's no honor in fighting a unarmed opponent, and that forever gave Vivek respect in the eyes of the Dremora who serve Mehrunes Dagon. But what I was talking about the rock too, the importance there is I just think in older games they did and why I think Morrowind's liked a lot is they really made an effort to make the mythology and the world building of the world kind of tangible, like a place that you go to. I mean, it does exist in the other games, but it's when you go to this, it kind of environmentally unloads lore and so on. It's because everyone's this big rock, and I think it's the place where there is a Dremora in front of it that. I think that might be the rock. I can't quite remember. But anyway, that having all of those environmental cues and something, or that provide history and context, it's kind of encourages you to get into the religion and stuff instead of just reading it through books, because there's all of these places that you're going to explore in this open world and see. And then you'll get the context behind it, which then introduces you into the lore instead of here you have to read a book to get it. Because I remember, dude, when I was a kid, I didn't really understand the Mythic Dawn's plans outside of vague, even evil kind of things. Because his book is just it's you know what I mean? For starters, you have to read a book. I didn't used to read books. I do now. But when I was a kid, I didn't read books in games. I played a game to play a game, not read the book. So it's best if you can kind of, both is good, but you know what I mean? You just want a little bit more of it in the front and center of the game experience.
You got to consider as well, a lot of the Mythic Dawn members were a bit more evil in the sense that not all of them fully understood, what they were doing, in its whole, and the importance of everything like that. A lot of them were kind of just used for Mankar's cause.
Yeah.
And when they all ended up in his realm of paradise, which he created, Gaia Alata, a lot of them ended up tortured, didn't they, for eternity? And that was kind of if you serve me, you'll get to live eternity in paradise. But that's not what they had in mind.
Yeah. So we, I don't know if we want to talk about it because we did bring this up again, but I did like the little line about, I think it was Gary Noonan talking about how her scene was intended to be a leader of the armies, of Mehrunes Dagon's armies, and they've had a bit of a close association, and you can kind of like extrapolate on that further with the Spear of Bitter Mercy being supposedly created by either Xarxes or Mehrunes Dagon in other stories, or you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think it's believed commonly that Dagon created them and Xarxes just has one with a H on it for Xarxes.
Yeah.
And
but
no
I mean,
one
it depends
knows,
on the myth. I'm pretty sure the Reachman myths about Xarxes really, like, the spear is very
like his spear.
Xarxes, yeah, like
Yeah.
it's a different kind of, because it's almost like they can call him like the spear. I think it's the spear of 5 points. They actually call Xarxes that because it's just like so, you know what I mean, closely embodied with him.
I think that could actually be. Oh, hold on. Yeah, it's just one of his titles given to him by the Reach folk, the Spear with 5 points, is reflective of this. But for some reason, I always wondered if that was talking about Dagon or Xarxes.
No, it's definitely talking about him.
Yeah, okay.
Because he's got the 5
Xarxes.
aspects.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Like is it Aurabeg?
Aurabeg, the hunter.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, I wonder, like, we don't actually... I mean, Haskell mentioned some stuff about Dagon. I was just thinking about interactions between Dagon and other Daedric princes. You don't... Because I don't know if there are many I don't think there are many stories about Dagon's, like, past. Because you know how you'll get... I mean, they did add a lot of this in the Shivering Isles, that Sheogorath interacts with, like, Vaemina and Xarxes and all of these different characters, because it came in the 16 Accords of Madness series of books. But I don't know if we get a lot of interaction.
Yeah, Haskell kind of despises him, to be honest. I'm trying to find the exact quote, but there's... yeah, so, you know, it's kind of a question is asked of Haskell, basically, about... you know, kind of what it means for them to be Daedra and Daedric princes and whatnot. And Haskell, typically, as you'd expect, his answer is essentially like, you have no understanding of this topic. Your choice to use the word Daedra means nothing to us. And this is what he specifically says: your lore of those disparate beings that you lump together as Daedra is based on nothing, lies and half-truths told by traitors, rebels, miscontents, and weaklings, which he's kind of referring to the Aedra there. Who have had the misfortune to become involved with mortals, or with Mehrunes Dagon. Do not speak his name to me again, the master of scum, the pawn of every prince of true power, the dupe of every schemer in the 19 voids. So, you know, not a great deal of respect there.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, he is brought up in the kind of Khajiit story, at least, if you were to talk of his interactions with other Daedra, but they are more kind of like, it sounds weird, but origins in origin. Like the
Khajiit story is essentially the same as the Lig one. Is the idea, well, except for Molag. So essentially, Molag enslaves Mehrunes Dagon in the Khajiit story, and it's Molag's wife, Meridia, or lover. I'm not sure what their relationship is in their stories. Frees him so that he can assault the Lunar Lattice, which is essentially Azura's barrier that protects Mundus from oblivion. So kind of like, you know, the plan is basically just to use him to destroy the world, except here Meridia is much more aware of what she's doing.
Also, looping back to how we were talking about Molag Bal in relative to him, is that they're said to be bitter rifles. And this is just in one of those like Lore Master Archive kind of questions or so on. But it makes sense as well in that regard, like how he wouldn't just become Molag Bal of domination. Like his point is only like, like we kind of said at the start, is chaotic neutral. He's just there to bring down the top, and then that's it. He does, because it's kind of like, it's bringing everything down but not rebuilding it and not asserting control over the things. And like the whole Mythic Dawn, the idea, he just brings the Dawn back to the Dawn era. It's kind of almost like, I guess, a return to chaos. Like he's the ultimate anarchist almost, you know, like.
Which is kind of like with Haskell saying he's a pawn, you know, to princes of greater powers. That essentially, he is at the end of the day a tool of destruction. And once he's done there, you know, he hasn't got a strict, you know, set of rules to reestablish society and a prospering civilization. He's got no interest in that.
A good way, like, I guess, too, like, you could envision Mehrunes Dagon as the ultimate anarchist and Molag Bal as the ultimate dictator. Like, they're just complete opposite ends of the spectrum, like hyper-authoritarian and hyper chaos.
Yeah, so they're kind of useful together. You know, you want that anarchist to pave the way for the tyrant.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
That's it's a crazy never-ending cycle in that regard. Yeah, I don't know what else there is to because there's things that I guess we kind of skim over a little bit more because kind of assumed. Like,
he has all these different stories. Yeah, like we know the Oblivion Crisis story. We know in Skyrim how his razor was split into pieces and you recover it and probably kill Silas for it. Instead of getting just a little bit of gold, or depends on your role playing. There's also that story though about the Chimera of Desolation, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
where he but he like creates this small realm of Oblivion, but it's basically like this revenge trick against this conjurer called Chimera Gragan. I think that's the pronunciation. But basically one of his wishes or something was to be like in his hometown with his friends and hearing their laughter or something like that. And then Dagon basically like just ripped the whole town into oblivion, killing everyone that he cared about. But then like you can still hear the laughter.
Yeah, it's creepy. Pretty. Yeah, I'm curious. What do you think they'll actually do with the Elder Scrolls Online stuff? It's called Jaws of Oblivion. So just think of that as the.
Oh, sorry, it wasn't the laughter. It was the happy voices. Still very creepy.
I think you said it earlier, Scott. I think it has to be an invitation as opposed to an invasion, because it'd be much easier to kind of to conjure a story where you go into the Deadlands. Like I'm fairly sure there is a quest in ESO that involves vaguely going into the Deadlands around around Mehrunes Razor. But I didn't actually do the quest, so I can't say for sure. But I think it could be a good way to kind of take the iconic Deadlands from Oblivion and make it an explorable region like Cold Harbor without necessarily doing an invasion.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, sorry, Gates of Oblivion, by the way, is what it's called. Jaws of Oblivion is the Elder Scrolls Legends DLC. It's called Gates of Oblivion. Maybe I hope this is such a big hope that they're like telegraphing with the Mehrunes Dagon stuff because it's relevant, but maybe there could also be like other gates you go to, like some other realms that it involves a bit more than just Dagon.
Or maybe they're just getting everyone hyped for Oblivion Remastered, revealed at E3 this year.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm kind of on board with the whole like. I don't think we need remasters, to be honest. Like,
no, we don't. I'd prefer all that effort to go into Elder Scrolls 6 or a new game.
Yeah,
because I wouldn't complain if that's what they released. I'd be like, cool, I'm definitely gonna play it.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing is with a straight up remaster is like, I do like that like Pokemon approach, like, you know, with like Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Remember, they really put in a lot of like
it's more like an overhaul.
New stuff. Yeah, it's more than just better graphics, because like, which, you know, would be fine if like Oblivion's combat like felt good, or I mean Morrowind, to be honest, deserves it more in that regard. Like if you brought it up to sort of modern standards or something.
I don't think all the modders working on redoing that would be very happy, would they? It would kind of throw their whole project into the wind.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but I don't think it's going to be enormously kind of groundbreaking or creative. This is probably just an expansion to kind of give a bit of, you know, brand recognition and kind of going back into something everyone's nostalgic about. But, you know, if you said that it involves other gates to other Daedric Prince realms, kind of like doing a Morian Xenos, Doors of Oblivion style storyline, then that could be cool. Yeah. But I doubt it.
I'll tell you what, they've kind of got to... Like, I know that there's some cool stuff that came out of the Skyrim DLC, the most recent, the Greymoor stuff. And the Markarth stuff. There's some cool stuff in there, but I feel like following up with this, it's kind of like, oh, you're going to Skyrim again, and now it's like, oh, now we're going to go to Oblivion themed stuff again, like the same topic material. I feel like they should like mix it up a little bit and throw in some other things. Like, because think about it, like most of the DLCs is like, oh, we're going to Morrowind, we're going to do Vardenfell again. Okay, now we're going to do Skyrim again. Like, Somerset was unique, Elsewhere was unique. And obviously there's some like smaller ones and stuff, like Orsinium, but...
I do think it is somewhat a case of, BGS working on Elder Scrolls 6 have been like, you can't mess with the areas of the map that we're going to be exploring in the Elder Scrolls 6 because we kind of want to generate the hype around that area for the new game. So they've probably covered all the provinces they can. Maybe they could visit Valenwood because I'm fairly sure Valenwood would be
a lot of Valenwood is there. Like if you look at the I'll just find it. There's the ESO like map that covers all their expansions, and really I'm pretty sure it was just a little bit of... There's bits of Cyrodiil still uncovered, but then there's good chunks of Hammerfell. Like they've done some Hammerfell.
You know what the master plan is? It's not because they don't want to spoil Hammerfell. It's because they want to make Hammerfell Elder Scrolls Online expansion packs after Hammerfell has hype, right? So they put out Hammerfell Elder Scrolls 6, and then to get more Elder Scrolls Online attention, they do Hammerfell DLC. It's not because they don't want to spoil it.
But they got to
just
fill
the same
3
reason.
years.
Yeah, but
that seems crazy to me. Like, imagine it's like, oh, I'm so excited to explore like really rich and detailed Hammerfell in this game that's been worked on for 5 years. I'm so excited. I'm going to jump into this like kind of somewhat half-assed ESO expansion of the same region.
Oh, they do it. They do it years later.
Hype.
And I guess if they have the Elder Scrolls Online fans already there who would pay for it, then it's a win for them. But yeah, totally agree. I would have zero desire to explore Hammerfell. But then again, look at everyone excited to explore Skyrim in Elder Scrolls Online when they could just play Skyrim.
But yeah, I guess, but they're excited for more content.
Yeah, exactly.
For a game they like. But if you were to look at the 3 spaces left, there's a big chunk of Hammerfell. There's a big chunk of like, what do you call it? Western Cyrodiil, and then there's a big chunk of Blackmarsh that they could still like, where you could put like a big size of stuff in there. And if you think of that, 2021's this Jaws of Oblivion thing, and then there's 3 more years. 2024 Elder Scrolls 6,
Yeah. I just
but
wanted to come sooner.
Yeah.
We need to get Mehrunes Dagon to do some ambitious speeding up of this process.
He can tear down Starfield and kind of devote all that energy into an earlier Elder Scrolls.
Or he could just destroy the franchise. Dawn Era Revolution.
Oh no. Well, I suppose there's some artifacts that we haven't really talked about too much. But I don't know how much detail we really need to go in about them. I mean, like you kind of mentioned, there's the Deadland Hammer, which you can use to summon Iron Atronachs, which is quite weird. But they don't look, in Elder Scrolls Online particularly, they look very much like Magma Atronachs. Like there's a fiery element to them. They don't look like iron robotic mechs or something.
Yeah. There was just this one other little line about like that they're cultists. They can signs of their cultists that there's tremors or something. I just lost what I was reading, but basically that when their cultists are acting, they can be. Hold on 1 second.
Signs of cultist activity include unusual tremors, no rain, more rain as they attempt to incite natural disaster.
It's from another lore thing, but I do like the natural disaster element a little bit more. They just throw it in there rather than just destruction. Like, yeah, I don't know. I can imagine him sort of like with one arm being like a meteor, one with like a tornado, one with like a lightning bolt, and one with like, I don't know, tidal wave or something. Like, I like that kind of...
Yeah. Which it does, it kind of does say in the Mysterium Xarxes that we went over before, is like, in each of his 4 arms holds the 4 keys, the Russia Plague Rain, the Storm, and all of that. So yeah, it is a cool element of him that makes him a bit more dynamic.
I mean, you guys can actually let us know in the comments too how you would like us to do these videos, because often we find, I mean, you've been enjoying them so far, but often there's a lot of like, we can talk way more on the metaphysical elements, but then kind of like miss some of the more insignificant kind of like, in 389 he had a dagger that did this or something like that, or do you know what I mean? Like there's some more of the sort of insignificant details, or that you could just sort of, you know, I guess assumed knowledge. Like I guess we sort of go in like that, you know what Oblivion's about, like the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. So I don't know.
But I don't know. Everyone could always use a recap. Let us know, what's your level of assumed knowledge in the
Let us know if you need more hand holding.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say I'm a bit guilty of that when I start the podcast talking about how he was born in League to destroy the gods.
Oh no. We've
Scott
lost. Has achieved.
You know what? We're done. Let's roll without him. Do you want to end the podcast this time?
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Dagon has Scott in the Deadlands for eternity, and we look forward to nerding out with you all again very soon.